Hi folks, welcome to my Bit Retro Journal. Today I'm going to be doing another Septandy video, this time on my TRS-80 Model 3 computer. And I actually already filmed that part because I have that computer at work in our workroom, and so this is just the intro part of it. So I actually took it apart to sort of diagnose what was wrong with it. One thing to be aware of, it was a very noisy environment. I think there's an AC unit in that area, and so I had to do a lot of filtering of the audio after the fact. So it's going to be kind of a crappy audio. My audio is not the best to begin with, but this is even worse. So, and sometimes there's a high pitch, I think that the AC system kind of brings out. So couldn't get rid of that. So just be aware, it's about 15 minutes of that. But I do sort of disassemble it and take a quick look at what's wrong with it. That particular computer, the TRS-80 Model 3, which came out, one side says July 1980, another side says 81, but I think, and I saw another one that said 1980, so I think it came out in 1980, the Model 3. Came from my hometown's Radio Shack. I went back there in 2014, and I was talking to the folks in the Radio Shack because I was surprised it was still open. And I remember saying to them that, yeah, when I was a kid in the early 80s, this is like 80, 81, 82, I used to ride my bike to the mall, and I would just go in there and play games on I think it was a TRS-80 Model 1 computer. And I think they had that out sort of with chairs so people could play with it, because they'd always have a game on it. Mostly it was like the Star Trek game, which was an adventure game. And I was a big fan of this was the original Star Trek. This is before Next Generation came out. And I think they left it out for years, and it became kind of a beater, but because everyone played with it. And I didn't get my ZX81 until 1982, and likely it was towards the end of the summer of 1982, because I was a kid, and so I would earn money, various jobs, at one point mowing lawns and maybe scraping pans at a local pizza shop, where they couldn't really employ you. You weren't old enough to be actually doing food work, but you could scrape pans out back. So stuff like that. And so I know that I would have had to save up money in order to buy it, and then I probably bought it maybe towards the end of the summer in 82. Remembering this was the ZX81 from the U.S. I think it came from Nashua, New Hampshire, where Sinclair Research had a U.S. branch. And so I bought my ZX81 at the end of 82, and then I bought this a month later at the end of 82. And so that was probably one of the summers I would have been at Radio Shack beforehand, because when I didn't have a computer over the summers, and we moved a lot as a family, so I didn't really have any childhood friends. So I spent a lot of time either with my older brother, who was a couple years older than me, or just by myself, and I would just go ride my bike everywhere in it was a very small rural town. And so 80, 81, 82, I would go to this Radio Shack, and Radio Shacks in the 80s were kind of cool because you had like lots of techies in there, as opposed to what it became later on, more like a phone retailer or just a retail shop. And so they were kind of interesting folks to talk to, and they were pretty friendly, and they let you sort of go and play around with stuff as long as you were, polite. And so, so in any case, this particular TRS-80 Model 3 came from that Radio Shack, and I took it apart, and I did find a board in it that said 1982. I didn't have that much time, so I wasn't able to really check it out thoroughly enough to look at the chip dates. But so it also looked like it might have been opened up and fixed, so it could have been a 1982 model. It could have been an earlier model, 8081, with a revised board in there. But even if it's an 82 model, it likely could have been sitting as a display in that Radio Shack. And the more expensive computers they would have on, and maybe they'd be showing a message like, Radio Shack computers, etc. Welcome. And I might have typed on it or whatnot, but they wouldn't actually let you play with the more expensive ones. But I could have actually briefly used that computer before then going on to the Model 1 and playing, Star Trek. And so this is an actual computer that I might have touched and briefly used. before I even had my ZX81 and my pocket computer one. So that could literally be the first computer I had physical contact with that I now have. So it's not one of them, it's actually the one that it could be. So I find that interesting. That's why I want to fix the TRS-80 Model 3. This is actually not the original ZX81. I bought this actually a few years ago on eBay. This also was not the original ZX1. I bought this probably in a yard sale in the late 90s. And then when the ribbon cable broke, I then decided to go online. And before I got back into retro computing and knew that you could buy keyboard replacement, I just figured these are so cheap, I bought one online. And then this is the original pocket computer, except maybe 10 years ago the screen started going bad, and before there was a replacement screen, I ended up buying another one, which was a brown. It was brownish because it was the Sharp version, and actually took it apart, and I was just going to replace the screen, but it ended up being too much of a challenge at that point, and there were no instructions on how to do it. So I replaced the whole motherboard. It was identical, but so unfortunately, I don't have the original motherboard here. I wish I would have kept it, but I think I put it back in the other Sharp pocket computer, and I sold it with a bad screen as is. And ironically, my original ZX81, I don't have the case. I have the motherboard. In my original pocket computer, I have the case, but I don't have the original motherboard. So, you don't think about later on, when this is becoming sort of retro computing is becoming sort of a nostalgic thing, should I have really kept it or not? Now, the QL is the original one. So I didn't get rid of that, but, and I didn't have so I don't know if you can see it in the video, but I have the printer, cassette, attachment for this. But when I was, as a kid, I bought this with just the cassette attachment, which was nice because it took actual batteries, whereas the printer cassette port or attachment has rechargeable ones. And if you saw my Septandy videos last year, I actually had to fix the circuit board for that. And I must have sold it on eBay or something, the original thing I had. Again, when you're, when it's not as far removed from nostalgia, like late 90s, early 2000s, you don't really think about it. I think I probably sold it on eBay. Yeah, late 90s, early 2000s. You don't really think about like, oh, I should keep this. This is a wonderful thing. But in any case, I still have most of the things that I have. And like I have my original ZX81, just not the case. And certainly the QL I have not gotten rid of, so I'm glad that I didn't. So, but yeah, so let's go take a look at my, the original TRS-80 Model 3 that could be one that I got to actually physically touch and play with before I got all my other computers. So let's do that. Here's my TRS-80 Model 3 microcomputer, and it's in pretty bad shape. I did try to boot it or turn it on. It would not turn on. And I already have it opened up. It's been sitting in the basement, and the furnace is going, so it's really loud in here. I'm going to have to clean up the audio bit, I guess. But yeah, wow, this has gotten really dusty. But will not boot up. I suspect, I already took it apart. Those are the screws. I suspect, it's going to be, it's going to be the power. So I think as I'm lifting this up, what we have here is the monitor is actually connected. So that's the power. And I'm going to guess that there's something going on with the power in this. So let me take a look to see if we can find anything. Actually, that's definitely the power. So, well, I guess it has two power boards. It's got this one and this one. So, so this goes to the monitor. Ground. What's behind you? So you have these disk drives, and where are they getting power from? So this board seems to be the one that's giving power to the drives. And then this board, it's the rubber band here? Yeah, I don't know which one the main board is. Does it have a fuse? Just to see the fuse blew. I don't see a fuse. But these boards basically look identical. So it's got two identical power boards. Interesting. And I don't see anything presently that looks like it's been blown or burnt. At least not in this one right here. We've got, what about this board in the back? So I guess it's going to require that this unit, which is right here, needs to be taken out. And so you've got two boards, two power boards, and just looking from the other side here, we've got, this is pretty easily removable, so let's do that. Okay, I've got it taken apart, and it's a crazy construction. Let me first show you as I pan up. That is the top part, which has the monitor and has the board for the monitor. That then connects to, there's a wire under this metal plate. But let's focus on that because that is the crazy part of this construction here. And show you some of the, so you can see there's a daughter board here too. So let me just show you how this all kind of gets put together. So I was able to take the disk drive housing off. I first had to take a disk drive out, which was pretty easy. And then the housing I was able to get off, and then I was able to get to all of the stuff behind there. But the really crazy part is this metal shield, which actually had a daughter board on it, which is this thing right here. So this thing is, yeah, this thing was on here like that, covered by this weird piece of shielding that has tape over it that actually has screws on it. And then that board with that metal piece actually sits on the other side of that, like that. Yeah, this is the thing that plugs into the monitor. So that's the only thing there. But let's move this to the side and just, again, there's just one. I think it's a power supply. I don't want to clip these things at the moment, so I'm just kind of move this as I go, just to show you the motherboard, because the motherboard is right here. So the motherboard is right here, and that's how it comes, all put together. And then you have to basically take this apart and peel this apart, and bingo, you get the motherboard, which is sort of, literally jammed in there, so you can't ever really get to it. Got some more protective metal shielding. This is a cable that goes to the edge connector of the motherboard, and then goes to this add-on card, which maybe it's add-on memory. I don't know. Let's see what these things say. These are all S74LS logic chips, so they're not memory, and a ton of them. And then there's a Motorola SC8756P. Yeah, I don't know what this is, but it says Tandy Corp 1982. So yeah, so that goes on there like this. As a daughter board with the power connectors coming from the back of the motherboard, actually from the motherboard. Let me go over here. Anyway, so that's the main motherboard. So 2 power supplies. And the motherboard sits here.
Okay, so I've gone handheld. Just to zoom in a little bit on the motherboard. Again, I think that's the main processor. That's memory. But notice it's got these two ribbon cables. And if I come around here, there is a two pieces of metal that are actually riveted together. That's a rivet. That's not something you get unscrewed. And that rivets those two pieces together. But if you look inside, you will see that there are two cards in there that are mounted. Fortunately, I don't have a light, so I'm relying on the lighting in here. But there's a card in here and there's a card in there. This card seems to give you the floppy cables. I don't know what that card is. The other card, the daughter board that was this, I believe that is the video card, only because one of those, I don't want to drop it, one of those connectors is this connector right here. And that connector runs to this connector, which is, so if you look at it, that is the connector that runs to that connector, and that goes to the monitor. That goes to the monitor. So perhaps this is doing some sort of perhaps this is some sort of video card. But how on earth are you supposed to get those two cards out? And then this motherboard, I mean, unless there's, oh, I see. There's nothing there. So this is just an open-ended chassis. So when you take the motherboard out, you'll get at these cards. I see. So you got to take the screws out here. This will pop out. Boy, this is just put together in such a way that it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws in there. And then you get to those boards. Okay, that makes sense. So in other words, this is the back of the motherboard. So that works out. But again, just to give you a little bit better look at the whole mess. So this shield closes off the motherboard. Talk about FCC regulations. You've got what looks like a power supply. But then there's also a power supply right here, which looks like it's to be almost the same one, right? Then it has two disk drives. The other disk drive is sitting here that I took out. And that's it. So, yeah. I don't think this is going to be an easy fix because I'm thinking it might be this right here. But if you look at the power supply itself, I don't want to go. I mean, there's nothing. Hold on. So make sure that I'm focused. So if you look, there's nothing specifically blown on that I see. And then the same goes for the bulging cap. That very slightly bulging. And then if I go here, again, there's nothing specifically blown on here. And the only thing I can see is that this cap is slightly bulged, but it's not blown. And then you have these things, which are notoriously bad, right? So, I don't know if I feel comfortable enough poking around on a power supply with high voltage. That's something that Adrian from Adrian's Digital Basement would be good at. Yeah, I'd have to ask him for advice if I want to salvage this. Again, this doesn't have this is not just some random TRS-80 computer. This could have been the first computer that I ever touched or was near forever. And of course, this is the and there's a fuse right in here as well that I got to take a look at. So. Yeah, and of course it's also very dirty, right? So who knows if any of that works. But before I go and start cleaning this, I need to actually get it to run first. So do I feel comfortable enough to plug it in and poke around with my voltmeter? I don't know. I'd have to, I think what I want to do is maybe ask Adrian, who's done a lot of work on these things, just what he thinks I should look at and what the likely candidate is. I mean, I don't have a problem with replacing these. Resist capacitors. You know, I can just get a replacement and I'm good at soldering, so I can take these things out and do it. But do I want to then try to, you know, the way I debug this is I look for burn marks or burnt things or blown things and replace them. But if I can't see that, because I don't necessarily see any of that on the board, then I think, you know, I put myself a little bit at risk to get electrocuted, right? I mean, I'm better with lower DC voltages that come on the motherboard and leave the power supplies to the experts, because I mean, I can take a power supply and rewire the outputs, but to actually debug one with those high voltages, that these capacitors, and you've got that high voltage coil, right, where it says right on there, that worries me, and I'm not sure I feel comfortable enough. You know, when I see this kind of stuff, danger high voltage, I tend to be like, okay. And again, this isn't plugged in, so that's why I'm touching it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be touching it. And I haven't plugged it in because I plugged it in a long time ago and it didn't work. So, I guess this video is not a fix-it video, but more of a, let's just take my TRS-80 Model 3 apart and give you a little rundown of all the things it has. So if anyone has fixed these things, I would love to get this fixing. I can definitely clean it up and do that part, but if I can't get it to work, and again, there's nothing specifically that looks wrong on the motherboard, but if I can get, I'm just going to assume it's one of these two power supplies, if not both, right? Because, and I was just shocked to hear that it had two power supplies. So, is one for the drive and the other one for the motherboard, and then also for the for this, right? So I don't know. Anyways, yeah, that's where I am with my TRS-80 Model 3. I could use a lot of help, and I don't want to injure myself. So let me know in the comments if you can help. I got it back together in one piece, and I just wanted to demonstrate to you how this is put together like Fort Knox. So the drive case has a screw there and a screw there, and it's also on the inside under here, so you got to take this out. This has a screw here and two screws there that go into metal, squeezed between plastic. There are, this piece of metal has two screws here and two screws there. The plate here has 1, 2, there's a screw down there. It's got 1 and 2. This video card, is that what we called it? I think it was the video card. Sorry. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, plus that shielding plate, which has 4 screws on that. So that closes that up. And this is, you know, basically very little room to have all these wires, but this is completely sealed up with the motherboard. There is also a grounding strap that goes with. So this is the wire that comes, runs along here, and then goes to the monitor. That's why I think it's the video card. Also giving it power. Yeah, and then the 2 power supplies. So it's like Fort Knox here. It's pretty well put together, and then the lid goes on top of that. But yeah, so I got this back together in one piece. Everything was tight getting it in there, but not the easiest thing to work on. But yeah, at least I have one working, TRS-80 computer, which is my pocket computer. That was a very successful repair from last year's Septandy. Not so much with my TRS-80 Model 3, but I don't know if I'll get another one in, unless I get a lot of feedback from this that says, oh, you should just check this
this, that, and the other, there might not be another TRS-80 Model 3 video for Septandy, and I don't know if I'll have another one, so this might be my only other Septandy video. Although I've enjoyed watching some of the other Septandy videos. I really do like the Radio Shack computers. They were my first exposure to computers because, as a kid, I spent a lot of time at Radio Shacks. And then I got into the Sinclair world of things. So I was into the silver look of the TRS-80 models, and then I got into the black look of ZX81 and the Timing Sinclair, and the Timing Sinclair 1000, and then the Sinclair QL. So funny how things change. And I also still have my original Z88 that I bought in the early 90s as well. So that hasn't changed anything in that. Okay, I will wrap up. Thanks for joining me today. Happy Septandy, and go watch a lot of the other videos. They're great. And I'll see you next time.